Alright guys, welcome along to a Wednesday night. Thanks for giving up your time to come here. This is really, really impressive. Great to see you all here. Big thank you to Ella and Jess for putting all of this on. They did all the hard work. So well done, girls. They did all the hard stuff. I get the easy job. I just have to stand up here and natter on about this. Alright, so the first half of the talk will be about everything that stress is, what it does inside our bodies, how it works, what happens. And the second half of the talk, we'll talk about all the things that we can do on a regular basis to reduce the bad stress. Sound good? Cool. Alright. So the idea is basically, set you up and show you exactly what happens in the body, and then we'll talk about the solutions at the end. So let's get into it. First of all, the idea is not to stress you guys out. So I don't want to, all of this information about what's happening in the body and how it's doing the good things and bad things, I don't want you guys to be stressed out. So if I do see anybody looking like that, then I know I'll push it too far and I'll back off. Okay? So if I see you guys like that, I'll start to back off, and I don't want freaking out. If I back off too much, obviously you guys are going to get bored, and that looks like this. So if I see that in the audience, I know that I backed off too far, it's time to push it up a little bit. So I'm going to try and stay in the middle, somewhere in between. So what is stress? Alright, stress, I actually looked up in the dictionary last night, I did some research, find out what stress actually is. I was actually surprised, it's not well defined at all. I tried to look at several different ones. One said it was an emotion like worried or nervous. One said it was, one actually said stressed is like, feeling of being stressed. They used the defining word in the definition. That's wrong, it's just wrong. So, what is it? I hear this a lot. Now, I understand what they're saying when they say that, but I don't know if they actually understand. When they say, I carry my stress on my shoulders, it makes me think of, do they think that there's stress cells in our body? We have stress cells everywhere. And some people fill up their stress cells in their shoulders with liquid stress. And then they've got to just flush it out. That's not how it works. But I do imagine stress cells looking something like this. There they are, millions of them in there, and you just get them, grind them out, right? Get rid of those stress cells. So it's not actually what happens. A definition, this is the definition that I came up with. First of all, it's not an emotion. It's not like happy or sad or angry. It's not one of these. It's more than that. It's more than just an emotion. So not angry. That is angry. That's intense. No, that should have been. That's what the stress cells would look like. Millions of those in the shoulder. Just in there. Yeah, like that. Get out of there. Ugh. Too much stress on me. No. This is what stress is. Stress is a physical response to a perceived threat. So those 4 words are important, and I'll go through them. It's physical. Something actually physically changes. In fact, lots of things physically change in the body. This is more than just a thought. This is lots of things changing physically in the body. It's a response. Something has to have happened. Right? This doesn't just spontaneously happen. Something has to have triggered this. And it's a response to a perceived threat. So it is a threat. So it is danger we're trying to get out of. This is the whole reason to have this. We're trying to get out of danger. Now, all animals do this. Humans are pretty impressive. We're so clever. It doesn't even have to be a real threat for us. We just have to imagine it's being something bad. We just have to think it's something horrible, and we start to do the same thing. Same hormones get released. Whether we've walked out in front of a bus, or whether we're just worrying about paying the bills, same hormones. Same systems are getting shut down. Same, regardless, okay? So yeah, it's perceived threat. Physical response to a perceived threat. So, okay, so here's the science. There we go. Alright, and it's pretty complicated. It involves the brain and some organs and some really big words. Like, look at this one. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. It's massive. In fact, and this is the simplified version of how it works in the body. Like, it's bigger than this, in fact. If I was to really nail it, there we go. That's explaining stress. And I'm going to go through every single line tonight so that we really get this. Right? It's even got a triangle. It's a negative response system. No, that's not. Right. Here it is. Here's how it works. Here's how stress works in the body. Physically responds to a threat. So first of all, we need the threat. We need something to have happened. Let's say we've just walked out in front of a bus coming right towards us. That's a pretty intense threat. It's pretty significant. So we need to respond. Now the body runs conservatively as much as it can because it tries to conserve energy at all costs. Energy for the body is like gold. It just protects us at every level. So the heart, for example, doesn't run as fast as it can. In fact, it runs as slow as it can and still produce the oxygen it needs. So everything's trying to go as slow as it can, but still run efficiently. It's conserving energy. It's like we're in economy mode. But every now and then, obviously, we can't just step out in front of the bus and stay in economy mode and just drift on past. We've got to ramp it up into high performance. We've got to get out of this danger. So that's what happens. So this is the response. So we've stepped out in front of the bus. Here it comes. We've got a response. So here's how it works. The frontal lobe, the part of the brain there, that sees it and it goes, whoa, there's a problem. It sends a signal off to the amygdala, so it's part in the temporal lobe here. Now, this part in the temporal lobe, it's tiny little balls on either side. Its job, one of the things it does is it worries, it gets nervous, it gets freaked out, and it gets anxious. That's where that part of the brain is. Now, so the frontal lobe sees it and says, right, I'm going to send this information off to the amygdala. The amygdala gets this information. Oh yeah, this is a worry, this is a stress, so it hits the stress button. Let's do it, let's send the stress down. It sends a signal to the middle of the brain, can't kind of point to it, it's right in the middle. It's called the hypothalamus, it's a tiny little spot, you don't have to know the name. It's like as big as my little fingernail, it's a tiny little thing. It's purely automatic, it does whatever it's told. So the amygdala goes, oh, this is a worry, this is a problem, this is a problem, and it is. It's fair enough, it's a problem. So it's a problem, so release the stress hormone, right? Let's ramp things up. And the hypothalamus in the middle of the brain is like, okay, we'll do that. So it releases the stress. And it does it in two ways. The nervous system and hormones, the endocrine system. So, and think of it like this, think of the nervous system in the body like telephone lines. It's instant, you can have it straight away. You pick up a line, you can reach that signal to anywhere pretty much instantly. Right? That's the nervous system, so it's got to happen fast. Hormones are like sending letters through the mail. It's a slower system. Hormones are going to go through the bloodstream, and they're going to go down to the letterboxes, and so it's a slower system. Right now, we've stepped in front of a bus, we need something instantly. We've got to get out of this problem. So it's the nervous system that's really going to help us here. Here's how it works. So this is, I won't go through it, but we've got part of our nervous system is called the autonomic nervous system. It does all the things automatically we don't think about. Okay? So, and to break that down, we've got the sympathetics, things that fire us up and get us excited and ramped up. And we've got the parasympathetics, things that calms down, relax, digest, heal, those sorts of things. And to keep it simple, think of it like they're like this. So when the sympathetics are ramped up, the parasympathetics have basically been squashed, they've been turned off. Now, it's not exactly like that, we'll keep it simple, it's like that. So the sympathetics have ramped up, and the parasympathetics have squashed down to nothing. So, and we need that right now. So we need to ramp everything up to maximum to get out of this danger, right? So we've stepped in front of the bus, we're gonna get out of the danger. So here's how it works. So one of the things it does is it dilates the pupils, right? Makes them wide so we can get as much information in as we can. We need lots of information right now. We get lots of information in. The heart starts beating faster. We need more oxygen through the body. It starts beating at more pressure as well, harder. The respiratory rate increases, so the breathing rate goes up. Again, all about getting more oxygen through the body. Because we're going to get out of danger. The arteries in the limbs, in the arms and legs, they dilate, they get wider, so we can get more blood out through there. Again, more oxygen into the muscles so we can do more work. Because we're going to run, we're going to outrun or fight this bus, whatever it takes to get out of this danger. So that's what happens. So it ramps everything up. And it's a good thing, we need it. We need it, absolutely need it. So that's all the sympathetics. So all that's firing up. I think I pretty much got it. It relaxes the bladder. It relaxes the bladder. See, in the body, our body recycles water often, as much as it can. The only time it doesn't is when the water gets to the bladder. Once it gets to the bladder, the body's like, well, we're done with that now. It doesn't come back from there. No matter how thirsty you are, none of the water comes back. So once it reaches the bladder, there's only ever going to be one way. Now, if we've stood in front of a bus and, oh, we're carrying this extra water and extra weight, we don't need that right now. So it's kind of like a dump and run. Okay? So we don't need this extra weight. So let's just relax the bladder and get out of here. So if you wet yourself because suddenly you saw the bus came, that's okay. It's natural. It's the response. Your system was working correctly. All good. Don't worry about it. So that's how the body gets out of danger. And it's really important. It's a survival tool. It is absolutely a survival tool. All the animals do it. All the animals need it. That zebra right now is in stress mode. So it's fired up. Its pupils are dilated. Its arteries are dilated in the arms and legs. It's got blood pressure's gone up. Its respiratory rate's gone up. So it's breathing harder. It's doing everything it can to get out of danger. Cool? Makes sense? The lion is also in stress. Because if the lion doesn't eat, it's going to die. So it needs to eat. So its pupils are dilated, it's ramped up to its maximum. So it's high performance. So they're both in high performance mode. It's a survival tool. We all need it. We absolutely all need it. I mean, if animals got along and they just all hugged it out, we wouldn't need this. If they were just, we're all good, guys. We're all good. So you wouldn't need that stress response. If all the animals were friends, or if all the animals were rounds, again, we wouldn't need it. They just, everything's cool. You can't hurt each other. That's not the case. So, is there such a thing as good stress? Can we have good stress in our life? Apart from the fact that, yes, it's important to get us out of danger, the answer is yes. Yes, we can have good stress in our life. We can do things on a regular basis and give some good responses to this. One of the things is a good stress actually increases our immune system in the short term. It just gives it a bit of a spike, really cool. It increases our short-term memory, really cool. Just in the short term. Now, it's got to be a good stress. If it's a bad stress, it actually does the opposite. I'll explain the difference and what it takes, but there are things that make it a good stress and things that make it a bad stress. So, there's 3 factors that make it a good stress. So if you're looking to do an activity and you think, is this going to be something for me? I don't know, yes or no. If it meets these 3 criteria, and it's different for everybody, but if it meets these 3 criteria, it's a good stress, great, go and do it. It'll be good for you. These are the 3 factors. So, it needs to be a moderate level of intensity. Not extreme, moderate. In other words, if you have a massive fear of snakes, a good stress for you is not going to be to jump in a bath full of snakes and yeah. No, I think for most people that would not be a nice thing. That's going to be an extreme. That's not. So you failed the first one, so it's not a good stress. So if it meets moderate level intensity, yes, that's 1 tick. It's going to be short in duration. There's a reason roller coasters all over the world don't go for 6 hours. It's not fun anymore. Right? So it's got a short duration. If it meets that criteria, there's 2 ticks, right? And you do have to have an underlying feeling of safety. Above all, you've got to feel that this is safe. I'm still in a safe environment. Cool. If it meets those 3 criteria, great. It's a good stress. It's going to do some good things for you, release some good hormones. By all means, go get that adrenaline rush. It's good. There's different ways we do it. Obviously, there's different activities. Reading a book is not going to ramp things up to a moderate level and intensity. You can modify that. I mean, if we were reading a book jumping out of a plane, there we go. Now we've got it. Now we've got it. That's short in duration. That's going to ramp things up. We could ride a bike out of a plane. Brilliant. We could drive a car. That's ridiculous. Oh, a bit far-fetched. Just backing it out, honey. Yeah, no, you're right. So no, good stress. A good stressor is something that, yes, it meets those 3 criteria. Hey?
I've got a client who's diving sharks on Saturday. Yeah, no.
Wouldn't know. It'd be extreme for me, so I couldn't do it. Yeah. But yeah, if it meets those three for you, then okay, that's something you could do. If you have a fear of heights, it's not going to be for you. You have to have those roller coasters that stay on the ground, and that's okay. But one of those, no, it's not going to meet the first rule, so you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that because it's not going to be a good stress. If you don't trust the bungee cord, if you don't trust the cage, if you don't trust the parachute, then you're not going to have that underlying feeling of safety. You're going to break the third rule, so you're not going to feel that's a good stress. It's not going to be good stress. Now, bad stresses come in when we actually, most of the time, we're actually breaking the second rule and creating a bad stress, the duration one. So is there such a thing as bad stress? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Now, the problem is we ramp things up, but we keep them up there, and we just keep them, keep them. That's the bad stress. It's the duration is the biggest problem of the bad stress. It's not designed for that. It's designed for us to get out of danger and then relax. If that zebra got away, it wouldn't be freaking out about it the next day. And, oh my God, I should have been there. It just goes back to eating the grass. Just eat some more grass. And the lion, if the lion ate, it's fine. It's not going to go, oh, I should have gone a bit faster. You got me on the turn. I should have dashed. It's just going to go and lie under the tree. Whatever. It's all good. Right? So it's designed to spike and then calm down. That's the whole idea of stress. So when it stays up there, that's the problem. It's the duration. That's the problem. So why we don't want bad stress? Okay. Now I'm going to explain. I'll explain a little bit about how that pathway works. I'm going to go into detail about. I explained the nervous system pathway, how things ramp up really quickly. I'm going to talk now about the other side, the hormones. Alright, why it becomes a bad stress. Alright, let's see. Alright, so we've got hormones being released from the middle of the brain as well. I won't explain the pathways, but they get down to the adrenal glands, sitting on top of our kidneys, and they release adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So these three things go out there and do their thing. Now, think of this like an army, and we're in battle. Adrenaline and noradrenaline, they're like foot soldiers on the front line with a gun in their hand. That's adrenaline, right? Yeah! Let's do it! Come on, guys! And it runs off into the bush. Okay? We need that. That's good. Good on you. Cortisol doesn't do that. The cortisol hormone, that actually goes back to the barracks, back to the base, and it starts building tanks and bombs and ammunition to make sure we've got enough ammunition. We don't want that adrenaline junkie to run out of ammunition. We're going to be in trouble then, aren't we? So, cortisol is doing its thing. It's trying to keep the ammunition there. That's what we need. And here's how it does it. This is really, really cool. So, first of all, when we talk about energy, it goes to our energy stores and it starts pulling energy out of our muscle and our liver. It's in the form of glycogen. It turns it back into glucose, back into sugars that we can use, pumps it in the bloodstream, and there we go, there's all the energy we need. We're going to be able to keep running. Right? If we were being chased by a lion, we can keep, well, if the lion was a bit limp, still running, but we could get out of here. But we had to chase it. If we're in duration, we can keep going. We've got the energy there because cortisol is doing its thing, making sure that this is going to be something we can keep going. Brilliant, we need it, absolutely. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about. Well, let's talk a little bit about sugar and how sugar works. This is really interesting. When we eat sugar, the body sees this as energy and it treats it like absolute gold. Energy is like the bee's knees. So it's not going to get rid of it under any circumstance. It's not going to urinate this at all. This sugar is ours to keep. We worked hard for this. So what it does, first thing it does is it puts the sugar into the bloodstream so we can use it straight away. No problem. Whatever sugar it has left over from the food that we just ate, it doesn't get rid of it. It doesn't just urinate it out. It goes, right, well, let's convert this to glycogen and we'll put it in our glycogen stores, in the cupboard, basically. And those stores are in our muscle and our liver. So it fills all those stores up. When that's full, it still doesn't get rid of the sugar. It says, all right, we've still got sugar, this is gold, we can't get rid of this. Let's convert it, this is what it does. Let's convert this into fat, we'll store it in fat cells. Alright, that's what it's going to do. Store it in fat cells. So it just pumps it and fills up all the fat cells. Great, now we've filled up all the fat cells. We've got all the glycogen stores full, we've got all the fat cells full, we've burned off some sugar, we've still got some in the bloodstream, so we're all good for energy, right? And it's got some left over. It still doesn't get rid of the sugar, even after it's filled up everything it can. You know what it does now? This is really unfair. It builds more fat cells. And it never stops building fat cells. As long as there's excess sugar there, it's going to keep building more and more fat cells. It's never going to urinate this sugar out. It's going to keep hold of it. That's why you see those people that get massive and they need to be craned out of their house. Because the body just kept making more and more fat cells. It just kept doing it. It doesn't ever stop. The only time we start urinating sugar is when we've actually got a disease, diabetes or something like that. Otherwise, so if it's not broken, otherwise the body will just keep storing that sugar. Now, so it's stored the sugar. Stress hormone has come in, taken the sugar out of the cupboard, thrown it into the bloodstream. Now we've got lots of sugar in the bloodstream, ready to go. All good? Good if we were having to run away from a problem or fight our way out of danger. Not so good if we're just sitting there going for hours, days, weeks. Because we're releasing, remember, we're doing the same thing, same hormones, same thing that's happening inside the body. So we get all this sugar in the bloodstream, but we're not using it. Is that a problem? Oh yeah, it's a problem. Yeah. All right, so here's the thing, here's the problem with this. One of the things is, well, all right, sugar levels go up. We get high blood sugar levels. The pancreas then releases all this insulin because there's high sugar levels. Here's how this works. Here's how a sugar gets into a cell. This is really cool. All right, so I'm a sugar molecule, and I want to go into a human cell. This is how I get in. Think of a cell like a nightclub. So here's me, the sugar, and I'm going to try and get into the nightclub. And there's a bouncer out the front. So here I come, walking up. The nightclub, hey, I want to get into the nightclub. And the bouncer's up there and he's like, not those shoes, mate. No, can't let you in, mate. You ever notice they always look past you like they're something more important out there? Anything other than looking at your face. Alright, so, and I'm a sugar molecule and I want to get in the nightclub. And I don't like the nightclub anymore. Alright, no, the sugar wants to get into the nightclub. The nightclub wants the sugar. The cell wants the sugar. But the bouncer won't let it in. What does the body do? It makes insulin. Along comes Miss Insulin, looking fine, walks up, puts her arm around Mr. Sugar, walks over to the bouncer and says, he's with me. The bouncer says, oh, guys, go on through. Not a problem. Not a problem. So the sugar needs insulin to escort it into the cell. Cool? That's how it works. The problem is if we've got too much sugar, and this happens too much, the bouncer starts to get annoyed. Eventually the bouncer starts going, look, you guys are abusing the system. I keep letting you in, it's too much. No, enough. No more. And the sugar's like, oh, come on. And it's just like, but, nah, have enough. And then they start to get this big line up. Right? All the sugars are like, come on, come on. Right, so they're all lined up. They can't get in because the bouncer's had enough. It's had enough. I only let in one every now and then, but no, that's had enough. In the body, that's called downregulation. It's basically what leads to type 2 diabetes. It's how we get the type 2 diabetes. It's because you've abused the system, you've either eaten too much sugar and you just keep flooding this bouncer and he's had enough, or you're too stressed and you keep releasing the sugar back into the bloodstream and again, flood the bouncer. Either way, the bouncer's annoyed and he's had enough. He's not letting any more of the sugars through. There's the type 2 diabetes. Okay. So, if we're not burning this sugar that we keep throwing back into the bloodstream because we're stressed, if we're not burning it up, if we're not exercising and using it, we're going to have this problem down the track. That's one thing. Another thing that we're going to have, if we've got sugar, excess sugar in the blood, think of this like, and this is not perfectly accurate, but it's a good analogy. good way to think about it. Think about sugar in the bloodstream like grains of sand going through the blood, and it can scratch and scar up against the edge of the arteries. If it's there long enough, it'll scratch, and then eventually it gets a little bit of a nick on the inside of the artery. And then the artery, well, it can heal. It just gets some inflammation, it puts a little scab on there, and it's all good. But if you keep scratching and scarring up with all this extra sugar in there, it just keeps creating these scar spots and more inflammation and more scabbing. Then we start to get thickening up of this scabbing and scarring area, and that's called atherosclerosis, and we start to reduce the size of the artery. It gets smaller and smaller because we've got all this build up of scarring in there. So we get these really tiny holes left and the blood's still trying to get through. And what happens with them when that situation comes along? The organs are starving now, they're not getting enough oxygen. The brain's onto it, so okay, we'll just pump harder. So it raises the blood pressure to try and push more of the blood through so we can get more oxygen to the organs. That's the body's solution to this problem. So then we go to the doctor, and the doctor says your blood pressure's high. That's linked to heart disease, the #1 killer in this country, so you're going to need to be on blood pressure medication to reduce your blood pressure. So you take the blood pressure medication and it artificially pulls that blood pressure back down. What happens then? The organs go back to being starved of oxygen because they're not getting enough oxygen, right? So they're back starving again. So the brain goes, no, we've got to fight this. Even though you're trying to stop us with this medication, it's still going to keep pushing and trying to push more and more oxygen through. So it's going to keep trying to ramp up the blood pressure. And you're squashing it with the tablets. Now, I'm not saying stop taking high blood pressure medication. That's not what I'm saying. But think of that like a short-term situation. That's not the end goal, to live on high blood pressure medication, because it's causing a secondary issue. We need to go back and look at why did that happen in the first place? Why is the blood pressure, why is the body raising the blood pressure? What's wrong in the body that it needs to do this to survive? It's not going to try and do that just for laughs. Ramp it up. Right, it's going to do that for a reason. The body needs oxygen. So if we're starving the organs of oxygen, that leads to a secondary problem. If you've ever looked into research of oxygen deprivation, cancers grow from that. It's nasty. Animal lab studies that one way to really ramp up the cancer rates is to starve them of oxygen. So now we've got cancer problems come from the fact that we're starving the organs of oxygen. So it's not just about burning off the sugar. That is one thing. Yes, we need to burn the sugar off, but we can cause so many problems if we've got all this excess sugar in the bloodstream because we were getting stressed long term, because we didn't switch it off, because the hormones kept pulling it back out in the bloodstream. Okay, that's one problem. So I think I've pretty much covered most of that. That's what happens. Yeah. Here's the other thing. It switches off. So one thing is the stress hormone pulls out all those sugars and gets them into the bloodstream. The other thing it does is it conserves energy wherever it can. So if we've got systems that we don't need right now, it'll switch them off, basically, or right down to low. So it looks around and goes, right, immune system, we don't need you right now. I don't care if we get sick next week. It might not be a next week, right? So we've got to get out of this right now. So it basically switches off the immune system. Digestive system, I don't care about the food in there right now, that's not a problem. I mean, we could be ripped open here and I could go out anyway. Not a problem right now, switch it off. So it switches off those systems. So is that going to be a problem short term? Not really. Is it going to be a problem long term? Big time, yeah. If our immune system is flat for weeks or months or years, yeah, we've got a problem. If our digestive system is flat for weeks or months or years, big problems. Big diseases that grow from that, big problems. So yeah. And this one. All right, so we're nearly at the end of the first half where we talk about all the things that happen. I haven't got anyone like this yet, which is good. Here's the one last thing. The hippocampus. This is a part of the brain. This part of the brain actually switches off the stress hormone. Here's how it works. It lives in the temporal lobe as well. So its job is to measure how much stress hormone we have in the body. When it gets to a certain level, it goes, right, switch it off. And remember that part right in the middle? The size of my little fingernail, but hypothalamus. So it's purely automatic, does whatever's told. So now the hippocampus says, switch it off. Okay, switch it off. All good, unless the amygdala, that worry wart in the brain, freaking out, I'm worried about everything. Oh, there's a problem with work and neighbours and everything, right? So if it keeps sending the signal down and says, switch it on, we got a problem, switch it on. Purely automatic in the middle of the brain. Okay, I'll switch it on. And then you've got the hippocampus saying, no, switch it off, the levels are too high. Okay, I'll switch it off. Okay, I'll switch it back on. What's it going to do? It's going to get these things. It's going to do whatever yells the loudest. So if we've got that amygdala, that part of the brain that keeps worrying, it keeps bringing it back to the front of the brain, it keeps thinking about it over and over again, it's going to keep sending that signal, it's going to keep making more cortisol, more stress hormone, it's going to keep doing it, and the levels are just going to keep going up and up and up, and it's going to stop listening to this. High levels of stress hormone in the body damage certain areas of the body. One part of the brain that it damages is the hippocampus. One of the things that high levels of stress hormone damage is the one thing that's trying to switch it off. Can you see the problem here? If we do this long term, we're damaging the part of the brain that's trying to switch off the stress hormone. Basically, that you can't yell anymore and say, oh, this one, turn it off. Can't hear you, this guy's telling me to switch it on. It'll just keep switching on more and more. Cortisol keeps damaging this part of the brain, which, by the way, also holds your short-term memory. So that's where you can start to damage the short-term memory. That part of the brain gets damaged, makes it easier for the stress hormone to stay there, keeps ramping up, so it's a downward spiral. It just gets worse and worse and worse. How are we doing? How's everybody? Good incentive not to stressed? Well, you're not showing it, but okay, fair enough. We've gone through the first half. Let's just take a moment. Let's relax a bit. Take a deep breath. All right. We're at the good part, the solution part. This is where it gets more interesting in terms of what we can do. All the good things, all the solutions are coming. So we just need to chat. All right. First thing, I'll give you this little one. This is great. There's a couple of parts of the brain that scientists have discovered that actually regenerate, regrow new brain cells. One of them is the hippocampus. The one part of our brain that's getting damaged by all that stress hormone can repair itself. Cool. All right, so if we give it a chance, it can help repair, it can help it heal. That's really, really cool. So, I'm going to go through all the things that we can do now on a regular basis to reduce our stress levels. So we've got this happening, we've got the sympathetics going out of control, the parasympathetics have been squashed, all our ability to heal and repair and digest has been squashed. So we're going to try and bring things back to a more even. Now it's different for everybody, but I'll go through some of the main things. One of the biggest ones is perception. This is such a big thing. It's probably, no, it is. It's too big for this talk. I could talk for hours just on this one topic, and just to explain how it works, let alone how we can change it, how we can actually adapt it and manipulate it to improve it. This is something you would do at club. You go to club long enough, for Dr. Pete's club talks, and you start to get involved in interpretations, how we perceive things, how we can then control that and change that and what we see. That's a big topic for another time. I'll just give an example of what I mean. Let's say we have a stressor in this room for at least one of us. Let's say it's these flowers. Let's say somebody in this room is stressing over these flowers. Let's say their perception of this is more than just flowers here. They're looking at these flowers and they're going, oh my God, those flowers are massive. They're massive, they're huge, they're going up the wall. They're coming across the projector screen. They're enormous. There's such a problem. They're heavy. If a child walked under that right now, one of those flowers could fall and it could kill it. It could kill the child. Are you worried about this? You should be worried about this. I'm worried about this. It's stressful. Now, the rest of us will look at it and go, I think you're blowing this a little bit, and they're not just flowers. Oh, that's a problem. I'm worried about this. They're massive. Can't believe you're not stressed about this. I'm stressed. Now, that's a perception that is probably vastly different to what the closer to reality is. Now, I could change flowers for anything. I could change it for work, for the boss, for the financial situation, the bills, the neighbours, the drivers on the street. Well, they are such a problem. Right? Point being, if we blow them out of proportion, yes, we can make this much, much worse, and we can really ramp up the worry state. That's all about that. It's a big topic. It's not what I'm going to talk about now. I'm going to talk about some simple, easy things. But if you want to know more about it, yes, you can see me afterwards, or we can go to the club and we can start to learn that stuff. It's a big, big topic. Let's go to some easier things. Noise levels. Noise levels actually have an impact on stress. There was a study done, children sleeping in moderately noisy neighbourhoods. And they found that while they slept, these kids had raised levels of adrenaline in their blood while they slept. These are not kids that are working and worrying about paying the bills and the tax and all of that. They're kids asleep. And they're high levels of stress, purely because of the noise outside. There was a study done, women in the workplace, and they set up two different workplaces. They had one where the office environment was 40 decibels. And they had another where the office was 50 decibels. So it wasn't loud by any means, it was just slightly raised in terms of the ambient noise. After 2 hours, they measured, and what they found is those in the slightly noisier office had higher levels of adrenaline in their blood. They had 40% less ergonomic adjustments to their workstation. In other words, they didn't look after themselves or their posture. Anywhere near as what those are the quiet ones did. And everyone was given an impossible puzzle to solve over that 2-hour period. Those in the slightly noisier office had 60% less attempts at solving the impossible puzzle. So in other words, in the slightly noisier office, they had higher stress levels in their body, they didn't look after themselves as much, and they didn't try and didn't work as hard, purely because of the noise. When asked, not one of them, not one, said they felt stressed during that time. It was just the noise. And we're not talking about really loud, we're just talking about a little bit of increased noise can impact the stress levels. So the reverse is true. If we reduce the noise level, we can actually start to bring up the parasympathetics and calm the body down. Now that doesn't mean earplugs in 24 hours a day. Just try and find places, and it's different for everyone, you've got to adapt it to your situation. But try and find things that you're in for long periods of time, like sleeping in the bedroom. If you need to baffle it or do something with shutters on the windows, if your office environment, if you need to move to a quieter office,
snoring.
You need to put earplugs in, sleep in a different bed, different room, whatever it is, adapt it to your situation. The point is, if you can reduce the noise levels, you can actually improve or reduce the stress levels in the body. Brilliant, that's one thing. Light. Light has an impact. This is really interesting. Sunlight, for us during the day, actually helps us release serotonin, which is a hormone that, amongst other things, it kind of lets us bliss out. So that's a real good hormone. Right? If we had lots of serotonin just flooding our body, we'd be like, I don't care about anything right now. The world could be on fire and you'd be like, whatever. You're on fire. Whatever. Okay. Right, serotonin. Now, yes, serotonin, great. Light, however, does stimulate the sympathetics. It does ramp things up. So if we're already in that state, we're going to try and darken the world, bring it down so we can bring up the parasympathetics and calm the body. Works really well at night. If we can do what this guy's doing and try and pull out all the night lights, that's great. If we can sleep in as close as we can to pitch black, That's really good for us. Any light that comes through the eyelids, even when the eyes are closed, the light's still getting through there, it stops the brain from releasing a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin, amongst other things, is the body's natural sleeping pill. So when it goes pitch black, and I don't mean, I suppose, I mean like do that and then it becomes pitch black. When it becomes pitch black, the pineal gland in the brain releases melatonin. Melatonin is the body's natural sleeping pill. Brilliant. So if we're doing that during the night, we're going to have a much, much better sleep. If we've got light from a clock or coming through the window edge or something like that, or the blinds, if we've got any type of light, we're going to reduce the amount of sleeping pill that we release. Okay, so we're not going to get as good a sleep. We're not going to be as rested. We're not going to ramp up the parasympathetics to do all that healing and digesting and repairing. So we're going to try and get it as dark as we can. And if you have to during the day, again, if your levels are really high, try and find dark areas and just bring that back down. Breathing. Breathing is a really good one. Just slowing down the breath, getting some nice deep breaths. If we can get that breath right down to the base of the lung, that's where the richest blood supply is down there. It's where it's really going to get all the oxygen out of the air. It's fantastic. It's really healthy for us. There's a bunch of different breathing techniques. If we keep it simple, we'll say something along the lines of a breathing technique of, well, first of all, breathe through your nose if you can. If you can't, that's okay, you can breathe through the mouth. But if you can breathe through the nose, breathe out either nose or mouth, doesn't really matter, but breathe through your nose if you can. On the count of, say, 1 in, 4 for holding, and then 2 out. So a count of 1 in, hold for 4, out for 2. So for example, if you breathe in for 10 seconds, just keep the math simple. 10 seconds in, hold for 40 seconds, out for 20 seconds. Somewhere around there, and it doesn't have to be exact. If you want to simplify it even more, just I breathe in for the shortest amount of time, I hold for the longest amount of time, and I breathe out for somewhere in between. Easy, right? Cool. We slow that down and we do that throughout the day. Fantastic. It again brings down the sympathetics, helps to bring the parasympathetics up, gets us back in balance, stops us from releasing all that stress hormone. Especially if we can put our mind into something like that as well, and we start thinking about that. Meditation. If we start meditating, or just putting our mind, our focus somewhere other than the horrible flowers that are out of control. If we put our mind somewhere, either somewhere happy and nice, we can go to a happy place, or if nothing else, we can go to, say, somewhere neutral, like breathing. If we can just focus on our breathing for a little bit, that's a neutral place, a very safe place for the mind to be. Very, very good. Again, we'll stop firing off the amygdala, stop ramping up the sympathetics. We'll actually be able to calm things down. You can do all these things. You can start to add, not just one thing at a time. You can, if you're a meditator, you might as well have the noise levels right down as well. Because again, we're going to raise the parasympathetics with it. Have the light levels down as well. Again, we're going to bring up the parasympathetics. Do them all. Why not? Adjustments. All of this is about changing the autonomic nervous system. Now, if our nervous system is interrupted or irritated from compression or irritation in the spine, it makes sense that, yeah, get adjusted. Release that stress on the spine. Absolutely. Adjustments can improve the stress levels. Exercise. Wherever, whenever we can. One thing is, yes, it gets rid of... Oh, it's brilliant. I love the ones that aren't really caring. It does this every day. Yes, stress. Exercise burns off some of that sugar that we've got in the bloodstream. Right? So the body's pulled that blood sugar out, it raised it up, it's burned it off, it's there. We're always going to be under some levels of stress. So we do need to have exercise as part of our regular routine. We've got sugars in the blood, we need to burn them off. We need to exercise. Regular is always important. So yes, and apart from that, if you enjoy the exercise, you're going to actually start releasing endorphins, getting a whole bunch of other good things out of it. We release endorphins and we feel good about the exercise, and we release some serotonin, we feel even better. When we're enjoying the exercise, again, that's calming down that amygdala, calming down the sympathetics, bringing the parasympathetic back into play. Brilliant. Exercise is fantastic. Foods. There are some foods that we can use to reduce our stress. Now, I haven't gone into this in too much detail, but basically these foods help with our hormone levels, and they help with creating feel-good endorphins and things. So green leafy vegetables are just absolute gold. They are the king of pretty much every table. Get as much of them as you want. The dark chocolate, fantastic, releases endorphins, makes us feel good. It's always nice. Fermented foods for the serotonin released in the stomach, that feel-good hormone just gets built in the stomach more than anything else. Berries for antioxidants, bananas, omega-3s, fats for improving the brain function. So there's some great ones. Really. Be careful with too much dark chocolate. I know that's probably the most inviting one there. Just miss out on that every day. The problem with that is the sugar levels. Because sugar is one of the things we actually want to avoid. Remember, we've got too much of that in the bloodstream already. So the foods to avoid, keeping it simple, again, that's one of the biggest issues. For so many reasons, try and reduce the sugar. Gluten, processed foods are just never ideal. So these are pretty much on most people's list of things to avoid. But yeah, the stress as well, things to avoid. Social interactions can help with stress. That can make it worse too. Depends who you hang out with. But yes, hang out with the right people, and you can release more of that serotonin. Oxytocin, you can start releasing that. The cuddle hormone. Give someone a hug and you start to get more of that going. Feels good. Perception as well. You can start to, if you start to talking to people about the size of these flowers, and everybody starts saying they're only that big. And then it starts to bring your perception back a little bit. Okay, maybe they're not that bad. If it's just him hollering, it feels silly. But if everyone's doing it, I don't feel so silly. Social interaction is really good for stress. So regular is the key. This is not something we want to do once a year. We work 51 weeks a year really, really hard, and then 1 week a year we're going to go to the highest mountain and we're going to just dump all our stress and leave it on the mountain. Get off all those angry baby cells. Get off of the shoulders. Get off. It's all over me. The stress is all over me. No. But yes, it's not about just once a year. This is something we want to do on a regular basis. Stress reducing techniques on a regular basis. It's fantastic. We just live in a society where there's always going to be some level of stress. It's always going to be there. Great if we can do less things in our life. It's hard to do that. If we reduce the amount of things on our plate, yes, we might be able to reduce the amount of stresses that are coming in, but we're always going to have some levels of stress. So we're always going to be releasing some levels of those hormones, some level of those sugars. We need to be doing on a regular basis something. So put it into the schedule. On a daily basis, fantastic. And it could be anything. This is just something I think about. Anything will do to on a regular basis. And there are so many lists out there, and I'm sure there's so many apps out there that you can put on your phone. Something that can remind you on a regular basis. Right, it's my scheduled break time, and even if it's just a couple of minutes, better than nothing. Even if it's just 2 minutes to just sit back from the table or back from wherever, go to your quiet place, just calm down, do some deep breathing, get back into it. If you do this regularly, it's like everything in the body. Regular is so powerful. Do a little bit every day, it's so powerful. It could be anything. Any of those. Play with a puppy, brilliant. You can make up your own list. The point is, if you start to use some of those other things that we talked about, and you can use as many as you want. Reduce the noise level, brilliant. Reduce the light. Slow the breathing down, nice slow deep breaths. Focus on something either happy or at least neutral. Social interactions, exercise. Get some of those involved in these stress techniques, and they can be different for everybody. There's so many different options out there, everyone's different, everyone's got different situations. If we use those underlying, as well as seek out those good stresses, fantastic, especially if they're involving exercise, even better. Remember those three factors? Okay. No. It has to be moderate in intensity, it has to be short duration, and you have to have an underlying feeling of safety. Okay. With stress. Cool. So we're at question time, pretty much. Now, you don't have to ask questions. You can if you want, but you don't have to. You can ask me afterwards. Otherwise, we are done with the seminar, done with the talk. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. You have show bags, which are